Adrian Locke had always felt like he was on borrowed time, a sense heightened after losing his job at a mid-tier insurance firm in a city where the rich lived like gods and ordinary people burned their lives away for a meager existence. The company's decision came as no surprise. He'd been passed over for promotions and watched as incompetence triumphed over hard work. The meeting had been brief, the HR manager's voice a steady drone telling him his services were no longer needed. Adrian left with nothing more than his belongings in a cardboard box and an unearned sense of betrayal hanging heavy in his chest. Homeless on the streets, he wandered through the city's underbelly, where beggars lined up to collect their daily coins for rent, a tiny room or corner in a decaying building owned by greedy landlords, who charged exorbitant rates. Rent wasn't just money, it was life. Every month eaten into his already meager lifespan, as if each cent came attached with its own price tag. Adrian found himself sitting on a bench near the city's Central Park, people bustling around him, oblivious to anything but their own small lives and needs. The night closed in around him, and as he rubbed his temples to fight off a growing headache, something began to shift. Numbers started appearing above the heads of those who passed by, numbers that seemed to float there like misty specters. Name, Marcus Hale. Age, 46. Remaining lifespan, 31 years, 4 months, 12 days. Adrian blinked, thinking it a bizarre hallucination brought on by lack of sleep and food. He pinched the bridge of his nose and rubbed fiercely, before looking up again, only to find that the numbers remained, hovering in their ghostly dance. It was then he caught sight of Owen Maris, a homeless man with a broken smile and hollow eyes. He wore patches sewn over rips and holes like bandages, trying desperately to cover deep wounds. Adrian saw the numbers above him. Name, Owen Maris. Age, 54. Remaining lifespan, 4 months. Owen noticed he staring and made his way toward him, hands outstretched as if in a silent plea. "What are you doing?" Adrian asked automatically, pulling himself to stand. There was an urgency in Owen's eyes that struck at the edge of something familiar in his heart, a flicker of desperation he recognized all too well. Before Adrian could walk off again, Owen grasped his wrist tightly and looked deeply into his eyes, voice raspy but clear. "Take the years," he whispered urgently. "I don't want them." Adrian couldn't believe what came next. A system-like contract materialized in front of him, a translucent screen floating above their clasped hands. Lifespan transfer available. Seller Owen Maris offered lifespan. 5 years price requested. A warm meal, a clean bed, and no pain. A chill gripped Adrian's spine. Time was the only currency in his pocket now that he had nothing else. The prospect of buying life seemed like both an opportunity and a trap. He took a deep breath and nodded. "I accept." The contract disappeared as silently as it came into existence. Owen's eyes closed, and his body slumped to the side, lifeless. Adrian stood there for a moment, numb. Then he felt something inside him shift. His remaining lifespan had increased by 5 years. He looked down at himself, feeling an unfamiliar surge of power. The truth hit him hard. Time was something everyone needed, and now he could buy and sell it. With the new sense of purpose that came with his discovery, Adrian began to think about how he might leverage this newfound ability. His brain spun with ideas as his eyes scanned through the numbers above the heads of passers-by. Among them were people burdened by immense debts or suffering from incurable ailments, people who would trade years for escape. As dawn approached, Adrian made a decision. He would start small, making enough to buy himself food and a place to stay. But in doing so, he quickly realized his power could be more than just survival. It could also be a tool for justice or revenge against those who had wronged him. The city's elites, so comfortable in their lavish lifestyles, might think little of his new abilities on the streets. Adrian knew better. He would keep this secret while he figured out how to use it without drawing unwanted attention. And as the sun rose over the skyline, his plan started taking shape. But above all else, Adrian understood that every transaction left a trace somewhere. The knowledge of this power weighed heavily on him, but he resolved not to let fear stop him from moving forward with newfound control over his life and the lives of others who sought out his services in desperate hope for more time. Adrian stepped off the bench and onto the sidewalk, his gaze scanning the crowds now through a different lens, Around him, people moved about their business, oblivious to the numbers that floated above them like ghostly tattoos. He marveled at how few of these individuals realized their remaining lifespan was as tangible a commodity as currency in this harsh city. As he walked away from Owen Maris's lifeless body, his heart still racing with the realization of his newfound power, Adrian's mind raced with possibilities. The numbers above people's heads flickered like neon signs advertising opportunities he could exploit or support however he chose. The first task he considered was finding a place to stay. After all, Adrian had no intention of becoming just another homeless statistic on the streets. He turned towards one of the city's low-rent hotels known for housing rough characters and people down on their luck. It wouldn't be luxury, but it would be enough. Entering the dimly lit lobby, he noticed a belligerent-looking man slumped over a counter, grumpily chewing what appeared to be an old piece of gum that had seen better days. The numbers above the front desk attendant revealed stark desperation. Name, Jack. Age, 43, remaining lifespan. 6 months. Adrian knew exactly how long it would take him to get a room and leave unnoticed if he asked for his terms now. "I need a room," Adrian said, keeping his voice low but confident. "But here's the catch, I only have this." Jack's eyes narrowed with suspicion as he held up his hand, palm facing upward. Above Jack's head, another set of numbers appeared. Lifespan transfer offer. Potential seller Adrian Locke offered lifespan, 3 months price requested, 1 night's stay. The counter attendant studied the offer and then looked back at Adrian, seemingly weighing his options in under a minute before nodding. "Fine, 1 night's stay for 3 months, he said gruffly, pulling out an oversized key from behind the counter. Jack handed over the key with what appeared to be forced reluctance. As Adrian took it, Jack eyed him warily but nodded. The transaction was final. The room would be his as long as nobody asked too many questions. Once checked into the hotel and closing the door behind him, Adrian allowed himself a short moment of relief. Exhaustion washed over him as he looked around at the stark room illuminated by the bare bulb overhead. There was little comfort to be found there beyond the fact it would provide temporary refuge from the city's unforgiving streets. But this feeling of respite was fleeting. Adrian's mind was already turning towards his next move, which required more substantial planning and stealth. He had no intention of stopping at just a place to stay and a meal in his stomach. He wanted to secure a firm foothold for what would eventually become an exchange that could control the world's most valuable commodity, time. He needed resources, allies even within this temporary shell of a shelter, and most importantly, time itself on his side. Adrian's plans began with small transactions like the one just completed, the first steps towards building something far grander. But he knew better than to push too hard too soon. This city was rife with dangers and hidden enemies. Every lifespan transaction left traces somewhere in some unseen ledger, and Adrian would have to be cautious about drawing notice from those who could see through the surface-level exchanges. He decided he needed information about the power he wielded before moving forward. The very nature of it suggested that there must be ancient powers or forces watching over such trades. The numbers had also given him a glimpse into a world where lifespans were commodities and people dealt with time as if it was just another good on the market. He realized he could start small, perhaps by helping those in dire need, and at the same time gaining insight into how to navigate this newly discovered exchange safely. Later that day, Adrian found himself walking through the city's bustling market district, where people were more likely to be desperate for food or a safe place to stay than caught up in the daily grind of work. It was here he noticed another potential seller. Name, Sarah Thompson. Age, 29, remaining lifespan. 5 years, 6 months, Sarah worked as a street vendor, hawking cheap trinkets and small snacks that barely made enough to keep her alive from one day to the next. Her eyes were sunken in from lack of sleep, and she looked as if her life energy was fading, even though it was only mid-morning. Approaching Sarah was nerve-wracking for Adrian. The exchange system didn't allow him to take advantage of desperate people through force or manipulation, but required consent. He needed to present a compelling reason for sharing his power with her, one that could benefit them both. "Excuse me, Sarah," he called out gently, not wanting to startle her too much in front of her small cart full of inexpensive items. Sarah turned around, looking up from arranging miniature statues and necklaces. Her face was etched into a perpetual scowl, probably from years of hard living, but she nodded at Adrian's words, curious despite herself. "Yes? How can I help you?" "I've got something that might interest you," Adrian replied softly. "Something to make your life easier." He watched as Sarah's eyes narrowed in suspicion, yet still held traces of hope. "Come with me for a moment, privately." His tone was calm, calculated not to draw any immediate attention from the curious passers-by. Once they were out of earshot and under the shadow of an old theater that seemed abandoned many years back, Adrian revealed his proposal. "I've discovered that I can exchange lifespan," he said slowly. It was difficult to believe even after witnessing it himself. Sarah's eyes widened in shock before she blinked rapidly, as if trying to make sense of what she just heard. "You're joking with me?" "No." Adrian shook his head firmly. "Look, lifespan transfer offer potential seller. Sarah Thompson offered lifespan, 5 years price requested, financial security for 1 year. Sarah took a deep breath, her initial shock giving way to something akin to determination. Her eyes flickered as she looked over the terms before agreeing reluctantly. Adrian knew that this transaction would mean more than just extended survival. It meant she could finally gain respite from constant struggle, and perhaps even begin rebuilding her life. The system recognized her consent and completed the contract between them. Sarah's remaining lifespan was now 5.5 years, while Adrian's rose by 6 months. His reserves had grown significantly with these first few transactions, but he knew they were nowhere near complete. There would be others like him, those who could see beyond just surviving day-to-day life. The city seemed to hum differently around Adrian as he left Sarah. No longer was it a place of oppression and despair, but one ripe with opportunities if only he had the wherewithal to take them. As night fell once more, Adrian found himself back on the streets. His plan for securing his future required both anonymity and caution. He couldn't afford any sudden moves that might raise suspicion about the unnatural shifts in lifespans around him. But the promise of power was intoxicating, the idea that even amidst this city's crushing inequality, he could change things through careful maneuvering. The thought brought a smile to Adrian's lips. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building his future and influencing the lives of others by doing so. But the path ahead would be fraught with danger. As he walked back towards the modest hotel that served as his temporary haven, Adrian understood that every single year he garnered came with not only promise, but also potential threats from those who might seek to claim this power for themselves. As dawn broke on another day in the Immortality Exchange's nascent beginnings, Adrian watched warily. He couldn't let fear stifle him. Only cautious calculation would allow him to stay ahead of the competition and maintain his secret until he stood firm as a pivotal player within both the city and its shadowy underworld. The city's early light was a muted glow, barely enough to distinguish shapes on the worn streets. Adrian made his way through the quieter side alleys, avoiding the main thoroughfares where too many eyes might notice him. He knew he needed information about how to use and control this power more effectively, without drawing undue attention. The city itself had secrets hidden in its layers, ancient lore, hidden factions, and whispers of powers that could be tapped into if one knew where to look. His next step involved a risk, finding someone who might know more about the nature of his newfound abilities. Adrian sought out a part of the city known for its enigmatic inhabitants, people who walked at midnight with shadows whispering around them. The area was a labyrinth of narrow streets and small market stands that sold trinkets, potions, and sometimes things better left unknown. As he approached an old man sitting under a worn awning, Adrian paused to assess the scene. The street was barely illuminated by flickering oil lamps, casting long shadows over the cobblestones. The vendor himself seemed unassuming, wrinkled face, ragged clothes, yet there was something in his eyes that hinted at depth. "Looking for answers?" the old man asked almost before Adrian could open his mouth. His voice was gravelly but carried a sharp edge of curiosity and suspicion. Adrian nodded, cautious but intrigued. "You know about this power?" The vendor leaned back, eyes twinkling with an amused glint. "Some do," he murmured, "but knowledge comes at a cost." "Fair enough." Adrian's lips curled into a wry smile. "What's the price, and what exactly would I learn?" "The price is your consent. You must promise not to use this knowledge for evil, or we both lose something precious." The old man studied him closely before continuing, and the lessons they come from experience and observation. Adrian hesitated, the weight of such a vow heavy on his shoulders. However, desperation overruled caution. He needed the knowledge to protect himself and to understand what lay ahead. "Agreed," he said finally, holding out his hand. The old man took it, and a moment passed before Adrian felt a subtle shift within him. It was as if memories filtered through time, each one leaving an impression like ink marks on faded parchment. "The chrono ledger is more than just buying and selling lifespan, Locke," the old man began, eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Time itself is a tapestry, woven with threads of life and consequence. Your ability allows you to splice these threads, but do so carefully." Adrian listened intently as he delved into the intricacies of his powers. "There are others like you, those who can sense and manipulate time." A warning note slipped into the old man's voice. "But not all wield their gifts for good." "Others," Adrian echoed, absorbing this new information. "Tell me more about them." The vendor sighed heavily. "They range from benefactors to thieves. Some see themselves as guardians of balance. Others, they prey on desperate souls, twisting time like a noose." "What can I do?" Adrian pressed. The old man's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Protect yourself and seek allies, those who understand the gravity of their gifts. There are ancient forces watching these transactions. Avoid drawing attention," he advised sternly. Adrian nodded, committing every word to memory. "Thank you for this information." "No thanks needed," the vendor replied with a cryptic smile. "But remember your vow, boy. Use wisely or watch your world unravel." With that parting advice, Adrian took his leave. The old man vanished into the shadows as quickly as he appeared, leaving behind only the cold air of an early morning. Adrian returned to his hotel room with new knowledge and a heightened sense of purpose. He sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tapping thoughtfully against his chin. It was clear that navigating this world required more than just survival. It needed strategy and subtlety. He began to form plans in earnest, plotting methods to secure allies and to gather resources quietly. The streets of the city held untold possibilities, hidden corners where knowledge resided, and people whose skills could prove invaluable. For starters, Adrian decided he needed a more central location, somewhere less conspicuous yet accessible. He mulled over options for a new base, somewhere discreet enough not to raise suspicion, but with easy access to networks and information. The next day dawned with Adrian more determined than ever. He began by exploring the city's underground marketplaces, places where whispers carried true knowledge rather than outright lies or empty boasts. He needed connections, people who could inform him discreetly of other chrono ledger possessors and their activities. At a seedy bar hidden below a bustling bazaar, Adrian observed a man speaking hushed tones with a group of others over cups of cheap whiskey. They were the type to have information. If he played his cards right, they would prove valuable allies or informants at the very least. Sitting in a shadowy corner, Adrian waited for an opportune moment to approach them. His initial interactions involved small talk, questions about the market economy and survival tactics within the city's layers of disparity. Slowly but surely, he wove his way into their circle, listening intently as they spoke about various rumors and secrets. One man in particular caught Adrian's attention, a woman named Mara Voss, who traveled frequently through these parts. Her name was often whispered in hushed tones along with mentions of power and danger. Adrian took note of her next planned trip to an ancient library believed to hold arcane knowledge related to time manipulation. It could provide valuable insights into his own abilities as well as potential threats. Mara's path would intersect with Adrian's if he played it right. An alliance would serve both their purposes. She needed protection, and he required intelligence. He began to formulate a plan to meet her somewhere en route to the library, ensuring that the opportunity for connection was neither forced nor suspicious. Over the next few days, Adrian took steps to ensure his plan came to fruition. He made discreet inquiries about Mara's movements and whereabouts, positioning himself strategically at key points along her expected path. Each action was carefully considered to avoid drawing suspicion. As he roamed through the city's layers of intrigue, Gathering pieces of a larger puzzle, Adrian couldn't help but feel a growing confidence in his newfound role as architect of this nascent exchange. And yet, with every step forward, caution remained paramount. The world of time manipulation was vast and perilous. Allies were to be found, but so too were adversaries. Each lifespan transaction brought both possibility and danger, necessitating careful navigation through the complexities of power and consequence. As dusk approached on his 5th day in this new city, Adrian found himself at a secluded meeting point, a small courtyard hidden behind an old stone wall. He waited patiently for Mara's arrival, anticipation mingling with cautious readiness. Finally, she emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, her eyes sharp as they scanned their surroundings. "Who are you?" she asked, stopping just within reach of the light spilling through a narrow gap in the wall. Adrian stepped closer. "I am Adrian Locke." Mara's brow furrowed. "What do you want?" "The same reason you're on your way to that library," he replied smoothly. "Knowledge about time and power." She looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and interest, perhaps intrigued by his sudden appearance in her world of secrecy. "Prove it." Mara's voice was stern yet tinged with underlying curiosity. Adrian nodded slowly, reaching into an inner pocket where he kept small trinkets that hinted at the truth behind his claims. He showed them to her, a crumpled note and a worn coin bearing engravings that symbolized control over time. Mara's eyes widened momentarily before narrowing again. "Where did you get these?" "Let's just say I have an understanding of certain systems." Adrian deftly sidestepped the direct question, preferring instead to hint at his capabilities. She studied him for a long moment, before sighing in resignation and stepping back, allowing him entry into her realm of secrets. "Fine. But know this. Your interests align with mine, for now." Adrian held up his hands in agreement as they ventured deeper into the shadows together, a partnership forming between two individuals who had much to gain and even more to lose. As the night enveloped them, Adrian realized that his path forward was complex, filled with potential allies and threats. Each step would need to be calculated carefully. He was not just surviving in this city, he was laying the groundwork for an exchange that could change everything and ensure his future in a world where time itself stood as the ultimate prize. However, Adrian knew too well that such ambition came at a steep price, one that he would have to pay with every breath and every moment of time he traded. The first rays of dawn filtered through the narrow alleyway, casting elongated shadows across Mara's face as she and Adrian walked silently towards their rendezvous point inside a secluded bazaar. Her gait was purposeful, her eyes constantly scanning the surroundings for any sign of trouble. Adrian watched her from the corner of his eye, noting how seamlessly she blended into the urban tapestry, her presence both commanding and unassuming. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Mara finally asked, breaking the silence, as they paused before the entrance to a hidden corridor leading deeper into the city's underbelly. "This isn't some casual exploration, Locke." Adrian nodded slowly, his mind racing through calculations of risk versus reward. "I've done my research. The library holds knowledge crucial to understanding our abilities and navigating this complex web," he replied, his voice steady despite the apprehension simmering beneath. Mara's lips twisted into a half-smirk. "You act confident, but you're walking down an alley filled with razor-sharp thorns." "I am aware of the danger," Adrian admitted, pushing through the entrance and following her lead as they descended the dimly lit steps. "But sometimes it's necessary to tread carefully over such traps to reach what lies beyond." They emerged into a labyrinthine network of narrow passages within the heart of the bazaar, a place where whispers carried weight and every face could be an ally or an enemy. Adrian kept his senses sharp as they moved deeper into the maze-like expanse, each step revealing new layers of hidden realities and whispered secrets. At one point, a thin veil partially draped across a corridor revealed intermittent glimpses of a bustling underground marketplace behind it. People haggled over mysterious objects beneath flickering lanterns. One vendor caught Adrian's attention, a wiry man with haunted eyes who seemed to specialize in selling trinkets that shimmered faintly as if infused with residual power. "Who's he?" Mara murmured, following Adrian's gaze as he discreetly approached the vendor. I think he sells items connected to time, Adrian replied, studying the man closely. These could be useful. Mara watched silently as Adrian struck up a hushed conversation with the man. They spoke in low tones, exchanging cryptic words and examining curious artifacts that seemed to pulse rhythmically, hinting at their purpose. Mara stayed a step back, but was clearly keeping an eye on both. After much bartering and exchange of small favors, Adrian returned from his purchase seemingly satisfied. He tucked the trinkets away carefully, adding another layer of complexity to his growing collection. Good choice, Mara said, her tone neutral. They could prove useful in situations where stealth and manipulation are required. As they continued through the winding passages, the tension between them grew palpable, each aware of the precarious balance they were navigating. Adrian felt a mixture of determination and caution, the need to act swiftly balanced against the risk of making missteps. Suddenly, Mara halted abruptly, her hand signaling for silence as she leaned close to Adrian. "We're being watched," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder with cold precision. Adrian's senses heightened instantly as he cast his own keen eye around them. At a nearby table where shadows pooled, two figures clad in dark cloaks were huddled together, eyes flicking towards the two of them repeatedly. "Potential adversaries?" Adrian murmured. Mara nodded curtly. "We should split up temporarily. It'll reduce their suspicions." She glanced at him, her expression firm yet concerned. "Meet me at the library entrance after you've handled whatever it is we need to handle here." With that, she melted into the crowd, slipping away like smoke. Adrian watched for a moment before turning his attention to the situation at hand. He paused beside a small merchant selling a variety of seemingly innocuous items, but whose eyes seemed eerily aware and calculating. The vendor was known by reputation as someone who provided information on the latest transactions involving chrono ledger activities. "Need something specific?" the man inquired, voice low and professional despite his grizzled appearance. Adrian pulled out a few coins from his pocket, placing them casually within reach of the merchant's hand. "I'm looking for rumors, recent exchanges with unusual parameters." The vendor's eyes lit up momentarily before he leaned closer to whisper details into Adrian's ear. Names, faces, and cryptic notes about recent transactions involving abnormal transfers of time surfaced, a veritable gold mine of intel. After extracting as much information from the merchant as possible, Adrian thanked him quietly, ensuring a fair price for services rendered. He needed this data more than ever as he pieced together the intricate web surrounding his own life since awakening to his powers. Exiting the market area, Adrian began weaving through the streets with calculated precision. Each step brought him closer not only to the library, but also to understanding the broader implications of his actions and those of others like him. This hidden world was fraught with danger and alliance, where every moment of time traded, opened new paths or dead-ended into unforeseen perils. Finally reaching a secluded section of the city where the ancient library stood, its architecture both austere and awe-inspiring, he saw Mara waiting patiently at an appointed meeting spot beside a weathered stone archway leading inside. "Managed to gather what you needed?" she asked, eyeing him sharply as he approached. "As much as is possible," Adrian replied, opening his hand slightly to reveal the trinkets and collected evidence from their brief interactions in the underground market. "We need to explore further." Together they stepped into a sanctuary of knowledge that whispered of secrets untold where books lined shelves under flickering golden light, each volume containing ancient wisdom or dangerous lore about time manipulation. As they delved deeper into the library's archives, Adrian could sense their combined determination mingling with the heavy atmosphere of history. This place, cloaked in the shadows and silence of forgotten truths, held keys to unlocking deeper mysteries about his abilities and the uncharted territories awaiting exploration ahead. The air inside the library grew thick with the musty scent of old parchment and leather-bound books, each volume a silent witness to centuries of knowledge and secrets. Adrian threaded his way through towering shelves, his eyes scanning titles in search of something, anything that might shed light on his newfound abilities. "Start here," Mara said, pointing to a dimly lit alcove tucked away in a corner. That shelf holds texts related to ancient time magic. Adrian approached the alcove with trepidation. The books he sought were likely hidden among tales of long-forgotten spells or lost civilizations. He reached for one bound in rough, dark leather and thumbed through its pages, his fingers brushing against yellowed paper. "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" Adrian murmured, flipping to a page filled with diagrams of strange symbols. Mara glanced over his shoulder, her expression unreadable but focused. "I've heard whispers about such things," she admitted. "But solid information? No." Adrian nodded, flipping through pages until he found an index-like section that meticulously documented different forms and types of time manipulation. Each entry was accompanied by esoteric symbols and cryptic notes detailing the conditions under which certain spells or abilities could be wielded. "Look at this," Adrian said, pointing to a section describing what might have been closely related to his power. The text detailed various methods for buying, selling, storing, and even accelerating time, a chillingly accurate parallel to the chrono-ledger system he had discovered. Mara's eyes narrowed as she studied the passage intently. "There are others who know about this? Could it be that your ability isn't unique?" Adrian stiffened at her suggestion but quickly regained his composure, turning to a nearby shelf lined with smaller, more intricately bound books. He ran a hand along the spines until his fingers brushed against something significant. "This could help," he said, pulling out a small volume and flipping through its pages. Inside were detailed records of various transactions involving time, similar in nature but far more vast in scope than anything he had seen or experienced personally. "Who kept these records?" Mara asked warily. "The Chronarchs," Adrian replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're the guardians or perhaps the enforcers of any dealings pertaining to lifespans." Mara's face paled slightly as she glanced at him. "If they control such transactions, then we need to be very careful about how we operate in this world." Adrian nodded in agreement, but his mind was already racing ahead. He had to understand the system better so he could leverage it more effectively. As they delved further into the archive, each passing moment brought them closer to uncovering something potentially lethal or incredibly advantageous. The weight of their mission pressed down upon Adrian. Every book he pulled from its shelf seemed pregnant with secrets that could change his fate or end it entirely. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the chamber, as if responding to their presence, a subtle undercurrent of disquiet. Adrian paused, sensing an unseen presence nearby, and motioned for Mara to follow him towards another alcove hidden in deeper shadow. "Do you feel that?" Adrian murmured, pressing closer against the wall as he strained his senses. Mara's gaze turned wary, but her steps remained steady as they advanced alongside Adrian, following where his intuition led. "Like a whisper of power?" "Yes," Adrian replied, lowering his voice to barely audible levels. "Or possibly something seeking us out." As they moved deeper into the library's sanctum, the air grew oppressive with an unnamed tension. The shadows seemed to close in, their edges sharpening into menacing corners. "Watch your step and stay alert," Mara said harshly. "We're not alone here." Her words were punctuated by a sudden rush of cold wind that swirled through the aisle, its icy fingers tracing a line down Adrian's spine. He felt a sense of urgency rising within him, but he pushed aside his apprehension long enough to gather one last artifact, an intricate hourglass carved from black stone. The moment he grasped it, the world seemed to shift and waver, as if caught in an invisible storm. The air grew heavier with palpable magic and whispers of warning. "Take this," Adrian whispered, pressing the item into Mara's hand before she could protest. "It could be our key to understanding the full extent of what we're dealing with." Mara nodded without question, tucking the fragile hourglass safely away within her robes as they continued deeper toward the heart of the archive. "Do you have a plan?" she asked after a moment of silence, her voice strained like a bow ready to be drawn. "Because I don't know how much longer we can tread this fine line between suspicion and knowledge." Adrian paused for a moment before replying, his mind racing through possible approaches. "We keep gathering information," he said firmly. "But the key isn't just in knowing, it's in manipulating what others believe they know about us." His words dripped with cold confidence. Behind them lay a calculated plan to wield knowledge like a weapon. But as they emerged from the main chamber and into an even more shadowy corridor, Adrian felt his heart quicken, a warning of the many dangers that awaited. The flickering light overhead cast eerie shadows on their path ahead, and the whispers turned into full-blown murmurs of disquiet emanating from every direction around them. The deeper they ventured, the stronger the sense of being watched became. "I have a feeling we're not the only explorers tonight," Adrian muttered under his breath, eyes scanning for hidden threats or lurking adversaries. Mara's jaw set grimly as she tightened her grip on her concealed weapons. The question is, are they friend or foe? Just then, an unexpected whisper seemed to echo through the corridor, an unfamiliar voice that spoke with a chilling clarity. "Your time is running out." Adrian spun around, his senses on high alert. The room remained empty and still save for the two of them, yet the hairs at the back of his neck stood up with the cold realization that they were not truly alone. "What was that?" Mara growled, her gaze flickering towards Adrian. "I don't know, but it felt like a warning," Adrian replied, taking a cautious step forward, perhaps one we're meant to heed. As they continued to press forwards amidst the swirling shadows and whispers, Adrian remained ever vigilant, knowing too well the peril that lay at every corner of this arcane labyrinth. Their path led them through hallways lined with ancient relics and scrolls, each item whispering secrets of a bygone era. Despite their efforts to move quietly, they eventually came upon a stone chamber where two figures were immersed in deep conversation, huddled over a flickering candle flame. The speakers' voices carried only whispers as Adrian and Mara pressed close against the wall opposite the chamber's open doors, listening intently. "Have you found anything?" one figure called out, his voice tinged with urgency. From this vantage point, Adrian could make out the shape of a well-dressed man who moved with purpose and an almost commanding presence. The other figure, a hunched-over individual shrouded in robes, spoke without turning towards them. "Information is scarce," he said matter-of-factly, "but what I have found leads me to believe there's more beneath the surface than we had initially suspected." "What does that mean?" the first figure pressed. Adrian felt a surge of trepidation and anticipation. The cryptic words spoken echoed the depth of their peril. "It means," the robed individual continued, leaning forward with an odd intensity, "someone is trying to manipulate time itself." Adrian's breath hitched in his throat at that revelation, knowing too well the implications it held. The chronoledger was far more than just a tool for buying and selling lifespans. Rather, it appeared to be something much deeper and darker. Mara glanced sideways towards him, her eyes wide with alarm as she whispered urgently, "This means our actions are being monitored." Adrian nodded stiffly, his mind already racing ahead. He needed to ensure that whatever plans were afoot did not jeopardize their mission or their lives. "We need to get out of here," Adrian said firmly, turning away from the chamber and beginning the trek back towards safer ground. "But we're still missing vital pieces of information. Then we find them another way," Mara responded grimly, falling in step beside him as they retreated through labyrinthine corridors towards the library's exit. With every step they took, Adrian could feel a growing weight pressing down on his consciousness, a burden born from the knowledge he had acquired and what it signified for both himself and those around him. This clandestine world was dangerous beyond imagination and filled with adversaries and allies alike. The power of time itself hung ominously in balance, and Adrian knew too well that he held the key to unlocking its potential. Together, they emerged from the ancient library's hidden depths, blinking against the outside light streaming through a broken window, a stark contrast to the shadows within. As they moved towards the city streets once more, Adrian cast one final glance back at the secluded sanctuary of secrets and lore. The next steps would determine whether he could navigate this web of time manipulation with any success, or if both he and Mara were about to plunge into an abyss they might never escape. But for now, their immediate priority remained clear, understanding exactly what lay beyond and how it could be used as a deadly weapon or a vital lifeline. The journey ahead promised only new dangers and challenges, but Adrian was determined not just to face them head-on, but to reshape the very fabric of time itself. As they stepped back onto the dimly lit streets of the city, Adrian felt a cold chill run down his spine. The knowledge they had uncovered weighed heavily upon him, a burden he could not escape so easily. "This isn't over," Mara said, her voice low and strained with worry as she watched their surroundings warily. "Whoever was inside that room knew more than we suspected." Adrian nodded grimly. "Yes, but now the question is, what do they want? And how far are they willing to go to get it?" The streets were unusually quiet for this time of night. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat, every passerby potentially an ally or an enemy. Whatever their game, Adrian continued more confidently than he felt. "We need to be one step ahead." "I have my own leads," Mara replied softly, "but they're not as promising as what we just found." Adrian turned to her, his eyes narrowing slightly in contemplation. "What's the status on those?" "Nothing concrete yet," she admitted with a frown. More whispers and shadows, no proof beyond suspicion. His mind raced through potential scenarios. This power play was far more intricate than anyone could have guessed, and Adrian knew they were barely scratching the surface. "We need to consolidate what we know." He gestured towards a nearby alleyway where they could talk in relative privacy. "Come on." Mara followed him silently down the narrow lane, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth beneath their feet. The air here was thick with anticipation, charged with unseen energies swirling around them. "Let's lay out our findings," Adrian said once they reached a secluded corner. "Maybe together we can see something we missed individually." "We know that someone else is meddling with time and lifespan transactions." Mara began methodically, her gaze distant as she organized her thoughts aloud. "That much was clear from the conversation back there." Adrian nodded in agreement. "Right. Whoever those figures were, they have a vested interest in controlling this power." "What about us?" Mara asked, pressing the point further. "How do our actions fit into their grand scheme?" "Exactly." Adrian's tone grew more urgent as he considered potential threats and opportunities. "We can't just sit idle after what we've learned. Whatever they want must be something that affects the system fundamentally." "What if it's us?" Mara countered, her fingers clenching into fists. "What if the target is one of us?" A chill ran through Adrian's core at that thought. The idea of being directly targeted was unsettling in a way he couldn't quite grasp yet. "It's possible," he conceded after a brief pause, "but we can't afford to speculate too much. We need action." "Then what?" Mara shot back, frustration evident in her tone. "What's the first move?" "We start by finding more information," Adrian said decisively. "Whoever is behind this must have left traces somewhere, perhaps even within the old archives themselves." "But how do we do it without being seen or followed?" she questioned anxiously. Adrian sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Carefully, stealthily. We use what resources we have and be smart about every move we make." "What if they've strengthened their defenses in the wake of our discovery?" Mara continued with relentless logic. "How do we get past that?" "We improvise," Adrian replied with a hint of determination. "We find new angles, new approaches, whatever it takes to stay ahead." A silence fell between them as each pondered the next steps. The weight of their mission had grown exponentially, and Adrian knew they could not afford any missteps moving forward. "Who can we trust?" Mara finally asked quietly. "Beyond us two," he responded solemnly, "very few." His mind flickered briefly to Sarah and Marcus, wondering if his actions had placed them in danger as well. But right now their focus remained firmly on the immediate problem at hand. "We have ourselves," she concluded, simply, her gaze steady and unwavering, "and any allies we can find along our path." He nodded in agreement, before turning towards an alleyway that would lead them to a hidden communication point he had set up long ago. It was risky moving about so openly, but every moment they delayed could mean another piece of crucial information slipping through their fingers. "We need to act fast," Adrian noted as they started off down the narrow street. "Once more, whatever plot is unfolding around us, we're now right at its center." "Agreed." Mara's voice was steady and strong with purpose. "But speed alone isn't our only weapon, so too is caution." The city seemed to shift subtly around them, shadows dancing on the walls as if responding to their thoughts, the unseen eyes watching from every corner intensified by the knowledge that danger lurked at every turn. As they navigated through winding streets and hidden passages, Adrian couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of inevitability. They were in uncharted waters now, battling against forces unknown that held the very fabric of time itself in their grasp. The hourglass within Mara's possession pulsed faintly with an inner glow. It seemed almost to taunt him from its hiding place, a reminder of the profound danger they faced and the delicate balance between life and death hanging precariously in the air around them. Every second brought them closer to uncovering the truth, yet also deeper into a web spun by powers both shadowy and perilous. They emerged at last onto a narrow lane where the shadows seemed almost tangible with their oppressive weight. Ahead loomed the entrance to Adrian's hidden communication hub, his safe haven from prying eyes in this labyrinthine city. "Wait here," he instructed Mara, taking one final glance around them before slipping into the dimly lit alcove ahead. The air inside grew thick with a sense of urgency and heightened danger. Outside the shadows swirled and whispers echoed, threats both seen and unseen looming large on their horizon. Adrian settled himself at an old computer terminal he had set up years ago, its screen flickering to life under his touch. He swiftly typed out a series of commands, fingers moving with practiced ease over the keys as he accessed channels and communication lines he knew were secure, those that could not be traced directly back to him. "What are you doing?" Mara called softly from the shadows behind him. "Setting up communications," Adrian replied without looking away from his work. "Secure connections. We need them if we're going to gather more information." "And what about Sarah and Marcus?" she prodded, her voice holding a note of hidden worry. "They were tangential players. Their role is limited for now," he said, though the concern in his voice matched hers. "But we need to ensure nothing threatens their safety." Before Adrian could finish, an urgent message flashed across his screen, an alert that sent shivers down his spine and raised the hairs on the back of his neck. Damn it. His fingers tensed over the keyboard as he read through the lines quickly. News had broken out that Sarah was missing, a small thread in a larger web now stretched before them. Mara stepped forward, her eyes widening as she caught sight of Adrian's expression. "What is it?" "Sarah's gone," he informed her grimly, his mind already racing to deduce potential motives and implications. "This didn't happen by accident." "Their move?" Mara asked, her own tone mirroring the gravity and tension between them. "I'd say so," Adrian confirmed with a harsh nod. "And if she's any indication of what they want next, we need to act fast," Mara finished for him, urgency etched into her features. "Time is our weapon, and their greatest fear." He glanced over at her, resolve hardening in his gaze. "Whatever they have planned, it affects us all." Mara's hands clenched into fists as she nodded silently, sharing that same grim understanding of the dangerous terrain ahead. They had walked into a fight without knowing its full scope, or who else might be dragged into the crossfire. "We go back to the archives," Adrian decided firmly after a brief moment. "We need more clues to unravel this." Her eyes locked with his, both aware of the peril they faced. But together there was strength in numbers, however small or fragile that alliance may prove. "Let's not waste any time." Mara turned towards him fully now, her voice steady despite everything she knew loomed ahead. "The game has just started, and we're all players on a very dangerous board." Their steps echoed softly as they navigated the streets once more, determination and grim resolve fueling their every move. "Whoever is manipulating time," Adrian muttered to himself more than her. "They underestimate our tenacity, our resourcefulness." The air grew thick with that unseen energy and silent whispers of danger lurking all around them, their very next steps now marked by the perilous stakes and unknown mysteries woven into the fabric of this city. The shadows seemed to press in from every side as they ventured back towards their safe haven underground. Every step brought them closer to uncovering the hidden mechanisms of a system that governed everything, yet it was also a labyrinth where one misstep could lead to catastrophe. "Together," Mara asserted now, her voice resonating with an unspoken vow. "We face this, or we fall." Adrian nodded stiffly in response, knowing the stakes were beyond anything either had faced before, but more so determined than ever to see this through to the end. Their path would be fraught with danger and deception, from secret allies to hidden foes. Every piece of knowledge they gathered could mean the difference between life and death, or between losing an entire world, on a scale far greater than anyone dared imagine. And it all rested precariously in their hands as they stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited them next. Despite the growing weight of responsibility thrust upon their shoulders, Adrian felt not just fear, but also an unbreakable resolve, a commitment to safeguard what was most precious and most fragile amidst looming threats beyond comprehension. Together they would navigate this treacherous web, or be engulfed by it. But for now they were stepping into the abyss itself, with nothing left between them and whatever secrets lay hidden in its depths. Adrian and Mara hurried through the crowded streets, the weight of urgency pushing them forward. Each step they took was deliberate, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger or pursuit. "Do you think we're being followed?" Mara asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she glanced over her shoulder. Adrian shook his head slightly, but couldn't shake off the sense of unease that lingered in the back of his mind. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but it's better to assume we are." Reaching another hidden entrance, Adrian slipped through first, making certain the area was clear before gesturing for Mara to follow him into the labyrinthine passages beneath the city. The air here was thick and damp, the flickering torches casting long shadows that seemed to pulse with their own sinister life. Once they were safely inside, Adrian led Mara deeper into the network of tunnels and corridors he knew so well. They moved swiftly but silently, the knowledge they possessed making every step feel like a gamble. "Why do you think Sarah went missing?" Mara asked as they walked. Adrian paused for a moment before answering, his mind racing through possible explanations. "Timing suggests it's not a coincidence," he said finally. "Someone wants us to notice her absence, perhaps to unsettle us." Mara nodded thoughtfully, taking in his words. "Then what do we do next?" "We keep digging," Adrian replied firmly. "If there are others like Sarah, ordinary people caught up in this, we need to find them before the manipulators do." They pressed on through the tunnels until they reached an area filled with ancient texts and scrolls that held clues about time manipulation. Each book seemed to whisper secrets of a bygone era, yet Adrian knew some might be misleading or outright false. "Let's divide our search," he suggested quietly. "You start from one end, I'll take the other." Mara nodded in agreement as they parted ways, each concentrating on their task with intense focus. The air grew even denser with a palpable sense of danger and anticipation. Every piece of information could be crucial, they couldn't afford to overlook anything. Adrian sifted through scrolls and documents, his eyes scanning for any hint of the manipulation he knew was happening. His grip tightened around an ancient tome as a particular passage caught his eye, one that seemed to link Sarah's disappearance with something else, something much bigger. He turned quickly toward Mara and motioned her to join him at his side. "Found something," he murmured urgently, handing her the scroll he had discovered. Mara took it without hesitation, reading through the text intently. Her face grew grim as she reached a certain point in the passage. This suggests that Sarah might have stumbled upon evidence of their scheme, a piece of information. "They can't afford to be known." "Exactly," Adrian confirmed. "And if she's disappeared, they may already suspect we know about her findings." Mara nodded, clearly disturbed by the implications. "That means every move from here on has to be carefully planned and executed flawlessly." "I agree." Adrian stepped back as he began to formulate a plan in his mind, one that would not only uncover the full extent of their adversaries' plans but also safeguard those who were caught up in it. As they worked together, methodically combing through the archives and piecing together clues, Adrian couldn't help feeling an increasing sense of paranoia. The very act of searching felt like dancing on a knife's edge. Every wrong step could lead to disaster. They emerged from the archive with a clearer understanding of what was at stake, but also more determined than ever to uncover the truth. "Whatever happens," Mara said firmly as they left, "we're in this together." Adrian nodded grimly, his mind already focused on their next moves. "Indeed," he replied, "and whatever we discover, no matter how dark or dangerous, we'll face it head-on." Their steps echoed through the tunnels again as they retraced their path back to the city above. The weight of responsibility was heavy, Yet Adrian felt a strange sense of grim determination, an unyielding resolve that would see them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they pressed onward into the uncertain shadows, steadfast in their commitment to uncovering the truth and safeguarding those caught up in the manipulation of time itself, no matter the cost. They emerged from the tunnel and back into the city streets, the soft glow of early morning light filtering through misty clouds, casting an eerie hue over their surroundings. Adrian and Mara moved with a quiet urgency, each sensing the pressing need to uncover more secrets before time ran out. As they ascended through the hidden passageways, the air grew colder and the shadows deeper around them. The whispers of danger seemed almost tangible now, as if the very walls knew something was amiss. Adrian's heart raced with anticipation, each step bringing him closer to unraveling yet another layer of this intricate web. "Do you think the others are aware?" Mara asked, her voice echoing slightly in the narrow corridor. Adrian shook his head grimly. "Not yet," he replied. "We've got to be careful. If we're seen as a threat, they'll move faster, but we can't afford to hesitate either." They reached an old tavern tucked away in a less traveled part of the city, once a hub for clandestine operations and now their temporary base of operation. The innkeeper, an aging man with weathered features, looked up from his ledger with knowing eyes as they entered. "Another night for Miss Voss and her companion," he murmured, jotting down entries without looking up. Adrian nodded curtly, accepting the room key before leading Mara upstairs to a small, dimly lit chamber where they could gather their thoughts and devise their next plan. The air inside was thick with musty smoke and the lingering scent of old parchment, hinting at the many discussions held there in the past. "Whatever we find," Adrian said firmly, "we need to be prepared for every contingency." Mara nodded solemnly, her expression hardening with resolve. "We'll need allies and information. But who can we trust?" Adrian pondered that question for a moment before responding. "For now, no one but ourselves and the few we know for certain are on our side, or have been co-opted into this web of secrets." He leaned back against the wall, his eyes scanning their surroundings with an intensity that seemed to pierce through every shadow and layer of deception. Every piece of evidence from here forward needs to be accounted for and cross-referenced carefully. Mara moved to a battered desk pushed up against one wall and began rifling through stacks of documents they had collected thus far. The air crackled with the unseen tension as her fingers flipped through brittle pages, searching for any sign or clue that could further expose their adversaries. "There's this," she said suddenly, handing over a carefully handwritten note detailing an upcoming meeting at a secluded temple on the outskirts of the city, an event only those in the inner circle knew about. The document bore no signature but carried all the markers of authenticity they had come to recognize from previous encounters. "Contact points for certain groups," Adrian murmured, his eyes narrowing as he read through the data meticulously compiled over months. "What are their endgames?" "They're not just manipulating time, they're using it as leverage," Mara replied with a frown. "It's more than just control. They have specific targets in mind, individuals or events that will shift the balance of power to their advantage." Adrian's gaze flicked upwards to where the only window in the room opened up to a narrow strip of sky. The city beyond was obscured by the early morning mist, but he could almost sense the intricate web that stretched over it all, from its lowest levels to its most opulent heights. "We need direct evidence, something concrete," Adrian said decisively. "Not just whispers and rumors." Mara's nod affirmed his thoughts as she gathered an array of items and documents they had collected. "Then we have work to do, and tonight we strike at the source. But first, we'll need something more than just our wits, something tangible." Adrian reached into a concealed pocket inside his jacket and took out a small, intricately carved box, a gift from an old contact, containing items of immense value but also potential danger. He handed it to Mara with a meaningful glance. "Be careful," he warned quietly. "These have more power than you think. Use them wisely." A flicker of unease crossed her face as she accepted the box, understanding the weight of his warning. "I will," she promised shortly before carefully opening its lid and studying the contents within, a set of peculiar artifacts that seemed to shimmer with a faint energy. Adrian watched in silence for a moment, then returned his attention back to their collection of documents and notes. The pieces were gathering together slowly but deliberately, a puzzle they were piecing together bit by bit, each tile bringing them one step closer to the truth. "We meet tonight at our usual rendezvous," he said finally. "Make sure you have everything you need." Mara nodded once more before turning her focus back onto the task ahead, carefully cross-referencing data and preparing for what was shaping up to be a perilous night. Together they would navigate this treacherous web or be engulfed by it. Each moment pressed them further into the depths of manipulation where every breath could mean the difference between life and death. As the day wore on, Adrian stayed ensconced within their modest room, poring over documents, maps, and cryptic messages, piece by piece building a detailed strategy for the night ahead. Every scrap of information seemed like an infinitesimal part in his mental blueprint, a map he was committed to following through with unwavering The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a dim twilight over the city as Adrian and Mara prepared for their clandestine mission. The air grew colder with each passing moment, settling around them like a thick shroud of foreboding. Adrian pulled out a set of maps from his satchel, spreading them across the desk. He pointed to specific locations, marking them with small, precise notations before folding them neatly back into place. Each mark represented a potential entry point or escape route, a network of interconnected pathways leading straight into the heart of enemy territory. "Remember," Adrian began, his voice low and steady as he turned to Mara, "we're moving in, blind but well-informed. Every step we take must be calculated." Mara nodded, her jaw set in a determined line. "We've done this before. Let's just hope no one surprises us." She reached into the pocket of her robe and retrieved a small vial filled with shimmering liquid. It looked like water but pulsed faintly, as if it contained a latent energy within. "Antidote," she explained succinctly, "in case we run into anything unexpected." Adrian raised an eyebrow approvingly. He had equipped her well for this assignment, knowing the risks inherent in their operation. Mara's sharp focus and readiness were crucial. They could not afford to be caught off guard, especially now. They gathered the items they needed, a few potions, several small talismans, and a handful of encrypted messages from their trusted contacts inside enemy encampments. Each item was carefully organized into a travel bag that Adrian slung over his shoulder as he stood up from the desk. "We'll meet at the usual spot," she said, slipping on a dark cloak to conceal herself further in case they ran into any unexpected trouble on the streets. "Be ready by midnight." Adrian nodded as he glanced out the tiny window of their room, the muted city below becoming indistinct under an encroaching darkness. "We will be," Adrian responded with grim certainty before stepping towards the door. He turned back to Mara for a final check. "You're certain about your end?" Mara's expression was resolute, unyielding. "Absolutely." As they exited their room and descended into the tavern below, the usual patrons looked on without recognition, faces hardened by life in these city streets. Adrian offered a nod of acknowledgement to the innkeeper, who returned it with equal solemnity. Outside, the night air felt colder than ever. It brought whispers of rain and shadows lurking at every corner as they merged into the anonymity of the crowd. The journey to the rendezvous point was fraught with tension. Despite his years in this city, Adrian still felt a shiver whenever such heavy anticipation built up inside him, especially when preparing for an operation that could tip the scales irrevocably either way. The stakes seemed to grow more perilous with every passing moment. Their meeting spot was tucked away behind an old warehouse on a particularly desolate stretch of road, where dim lanterns flickered weakly and cast eerie shadows against the brick walls. Adrian and Mara slipped into the cover of darkness, maintaining constant vigilance for any signs of intrusion or surveillance. When they reached their destination, Adrian motioned to Mara with a quick gesture, indicating she should take point while he maintained lookout from his concealed position behind a stack of old crates. As expected, members began arriving one by one. Shadows emerged from the darkened alleyways and melded seamlessly into the gathering. Some moved with an almost animalistic grace, trained assassins or skilled guerrilla fighters with faces obscured beneath hoods and masks. Each arrival brought another layer to their complex web of alliances, enemies, and informants, Adrian watched as each member offered coded greetings before settling down into a tight circle around a central point where the most secure communications occurred. Adrian observed them carefully from his concealed vantage, gauging every interaction, movement, and expression. The air crackled with unease as whispers turned to urgent murmurs, speaking of plots unfolding in dark corners and plans that would reshape the very fabric of this clandestine network. Once everyone was assembled, a leader stepped forward, a figure dressed from head to toe in black robes adorned with mysterious symbols. His voice carried an authoritative command as he began laying out their mission specifics. We're gathering intelligence on a high-priority target located within enemy territory. The information is critical, not just for survival, but for our long-term objectives. The figure spoke firmly, his eyes scanning around at each of them. And what happens if we're caught? One member interjected, his tone laced with barely restrained panic. We adapt and improvise, the leader intoned calmly. You've all been through similar operations. You know better than to lose track in a moment. Adrian studied the group dynamics closely, watching for any discrepancies or double-dealing, but also for signs of genuine camaraderie and trust that might be leveraged later. When it was Adrian's turn to address their mission specifics with the chosen operatives, a small team handpicked by him based on their skills and reliability, he spoke with cold precision. We're infiltrating a stronghold not far from here. Mara will serve as our eyes and ears among them, gather every detail about their plans, motives, and movements. He nodded in affirmation, her face remaining expressionless but for the flicker of determination behind her gaze. You'll leave first thing tomorrow morning, Adrian continued with an air of finality. I'll await your return to extract any pertinent details you uncover, but be prepared for every outcome. The group dispersed shortly after their meeting concluded, each member making their way back into the city streets and disappearing seamlessly into the dark like phantoms. Adrian lingered in his position slightly longer as he assessed any lingering threats before finally moving out of the area with stealth. As night deepened, he returned to their modest chamber to continue piecing together fragments of information in greater detail, analyzing the data they had so far and cross-referencing it against known facts. Each new insight brought him closer to unraveling the complex web surrounding the manipulation of time itself and the forces orchestrating these covert operations. The hours passed swiftly, filled with meticulous planning and strategizing as Adrian carefully weighed every decision that lay ahead. Every potential turn was considered in painstaking detail, a chess game played in shifting shadows where one wrong move could prove fatal not just for him, but for all involved. With morning drawing near, Adrian turned his focus towards ensuring he had everything in order, checking and double-checking contingency plans while also preparing to deploy the team into action. The stakes were higher than ever, the consequences of failure looming large over their mission and his ultimate goals for controlling time itself. The dawn approached quickly, casting long shadows throughout their room as Adrian readied himself to orchestrate the next stage of what promised to be a perilous endeavor, one that would determine not just their immediate future, but potentially rewrite the very course of history moving forward. Adrian lingered by the dim window, watching shadows dance across the cobbled streets as the first light of dawn began to creep into his chamber. The city's familiar clamor started to stir, a faint murmur of morning activities barely audible through the thick stone walls. He turned back to Mara, who sat quietly at the table, her robes draped over her shoulders as she carefully packed their essential materials into compact cases. Her face revealed nothing but determination, each movement calculated with precision. Everything set? Adrian asked, his voice low and calm despite the tension gnawing at him. Mara nodded briskly. Ready? Adrian stepped forward and handed her a small amulet, its surface etched with arcane symbols. Carry this, it's our failsafe. She took it without hesitation, slipping the amulet beneath her robes where it would remain hidden yet always within reach. Adrian knew she didn't need reassurances. She was as prepared for what lay ahead as he could make her. Remember, Adrian continued, his tone grave with a hint of warning, even a minor mistake can unravel everything. Mara's expression tightened subtly, but remained composed and focused. Understood. The air between them crackled with an electric mixture of tension and resolve, the weight of their shared purpose hanging heavily in the silence. Once Mara was fully prepared, Adrian led her to the small storage area at the back of their chamber. Nothing more than a dark alcove filled with stacked crates designed to hold minimal inventory for the tavern. They used this space to conceal further supplies that could be accessed quickly if needed. "We'll meet here if you lose our contacts," Adrian said quietly as they positioned themselves within the alcove, out of view from prying eyes that might wander the tavern in search of them. Mara nodded and reached into her robe pocket once more. "Have this," she said, pulling out a small envelope sealed with wax, a sign of their deepest trust. Adrian accepted it silently, knowing its contents were critical instructions should the mission go sour. "I'll expect you back just after dawn, or I start tracking your trail on my own." Adrian's words were laced with a promise implicit in their mutual understanding of the risks they faced daily within this shadowed world. Mara inclined her head minutely as acknowledgement. "Then let's make certain we're not needed." Adrian offered a tight nod before stepping away, giving Mara space to exit through the back alley and avoid any unnecessary attention on their departure together. Once outside in the crisp morning air, Adrian surveyed his surroundings carefully, ensuring there was no unwanted surveillance or followers. The city streets were still mostly quiet at this hour, merchants beginning their early preparations for business mingled with a few intrepid souls heading out into the dawn's chill. Adrian made his way back through the winding alleys, moving swiftly to avoid detection while keeping an ever-watchful eye on his surroundings. His thoughts remained focused and steady as he anticipated the upcoming events and potential contingencies that could arise from the infiltration of enemy territory. The initial infiltration of the stronghold was set for midday when activity swelled within its walls, a cover allowing Mara and her team to blend seamlessly into the ebb and flow of daily operations without raising suspicion. During this window, they would begin gathering vital intelligence about their targeted operation. As time pushed toward noon, Adrian took a seat in an unassuming tavern not far from his meeting point. This place served as his temporary command center, a familiar setting where he could observe interactions both inside and out while maintaining a low profile within the bustling city environment. Inside, patrons chatted around various tables, engrossed in their morning rituals or news of recent events within the city. Adrian chose a corner position that offered unobstructed views through several windows, ensuring he stayed informed without drawing unwanted attention to himself. Outside, activity continued to rise as traders and couriers arrived at their destinations, bringing an infectious energy to the streets, people hurrying on their way, goods being transported from one place to another. Adrian maintained a casual yet alert stance, his awareness sharp as ever for any discrepancies or signs that hinted at potential disturbances ahead. Throughout the morning, he observed every detail of passing conversations and interactions within and around the tavern walls, cross-referencing what he could glean with current intelligence in hopes of finding fresh leads on any unknowns related to their mission. Noon approached swiftly, a wave of activity sweeping through the stronghold as anticipated. Mara's team would soon move into action, each member adopting their cover roles and merging seamlessly with everyday life within enemy walls. Adrian remained vigilant, staying within his designated location until he received word that an initial connection had been established, an indicator signaling it was time to begin extracting crucial insights gathered throughout the day. Hours passed slowly as Adrian waited, each moment tense but necessary. His focus never wavered from scanning every detail, watching for any anomalies as much as the expected contacts reporting back with their findings. By late afternoon, word finally arrived. A small message slipped discreetly into Adrian's hand during a brief encounter at another tavern frequented by trusted allies within this vast web of shadows. Mara and her team had successfully assimilated, gathering an array of critical data from within the stronghold. The intelligence promised to yield significant advancements in their broader objectives, or possibly unearth unforeseen dangers lying dormant beneath the surface. Adrian quickly analyzed each fragment shared over clandestine communication channels, piecing together patterns and cross-referencing key elements against known facts in his possession. He noted the strategic points that could be exploited, vulnerabilities within the enemy's infrastructure, alliances that might sway to their side, potential escape routes if needed. Every shred of evidence collected brought Adrian closer to unraveling the intricate puzzles surrounding this clandestine network and its machinations involving time manipulation. The risks were immense, but so too was the potential for unprecedented leverage, a reality made more tangible as each piece of intelligence solidified their understanding of what they were up against. Despite the growing sense of optimism, however, Adrian maintained strict discipline. He reminded himself that their success hinged on meticulous planning and precise execution. No room existed for complacency when navigating a terrain riddled with treacherous factions and unpredictable variables. Throughout the evening hours, as news continued to trickle in via various secret contacts scattered throughout enemy territory, he made necessary adjustments to his plans, crafting contingency measures designed to withstand any unexpected outcomes. With dusk settling over the city, Adrian finalized every detail for their upcoming operation, a masterful mosaic of strategic planning and adaptability. He anticipated each step with a calculated precision that bordered on cold detachment, yet it was this very aloof resolve that had enabled him and his network to endure through countless trials and tribulations since he first stumbled into this realm. As the night deepened and stars painted the sky above, Adrian returned once more to their meeting chamber. His mind raced with the weight of decisions still to be made, alliances yet to forge or break apart. He took a seat at the table and retrieved the amulet Mara had given him earlier, a reminder of both her commitment and his own responsibilities within this clandestine dance of power and manipulation. The Chrono Ledger's potential hovered just beyond reach, closer now with every day that passed, yet still distant from full realization. Adrian understood too well how easily victory could be snatched away if missteps occurred or crucial intelligence was overlooked. His focus narrowed as he studied each piece of intel they had assembled thus far, the complex puzzle slowly unraveling beneath his gaze. With Mara's input and their combined knowledge gleaned through painstaking investigation, a clearer picture began to emerge, one that pointed inexorably toward the heart of this enigmatic network manipulating time itself. Adrian recognized that the final pieces were falling into place, setting the stage for a grand finale where he would either seize control over the very essence of existence or plunge headfirst into an abyss from which there was no return. For now, though, his immediate attention centered on orchestrating their next move, a critical phase in turning potential insights into concrete actions capable of rewriting not just this conflict, but the entire course of history itself. The clock ticked forward inexorably, each passing moment bringing them closer to the precipice where everything would hinge upon the strength and resilience of their joint effort. And so, Adrian prepared once more, mindset focused, resolve firm for whatever waited on the other side as he poised himself to make a move that could set in motion events beyond even his wildest calculations. The game was far from over. Only now it drew into its most daring acts yet, a dance of fate where every step had the weight of eternity upon it. The night promised much danger, uncertainty, but also unprecedented opportunities for those ready to seize them. Adrian was more than prepared, knowing too well that success hinged not just on planning but on being fully attuned and adaptable amidst a tempestuous world teetering on the brink of irrevocable change. The dim glow of lanterns cast flickering shadows across the room as Adrian scanned the assembled members of his team, including Mara and her silent dedication. Each face brimmed with an intensity that spoke to their shared understanding of the stakes at hand. Adrian's voice remained calm but authoritative, his eyes locking onto each individual in turn. "Tonight we move," he declared. "We've gathered everything within our reach, but we must act now before the network becomes aware and tightens its grip." Mara stepped forward, her expression stern yet resolute. "Our sources confirm that there will be a significant gathering tonight of the high-ranking members." Her eyes flicked briefly to Adrian, conveying a subtle confidence in his plans. Adrian nodded succinctly, drawing out an ancient-looking amulet from beneath his cloak. The gem at its center pulsed faintly with a cold light. "This is what we've been waiting for," he said firmly. He placed it on the table, a symbol of trust and commitment. "Mara," Adrian addressed her directly, "you will lead your team into the stronghold as planned. Your job is to secure proof that extends beyond shadowy whispers, the ledger itself if possible." Mara's eyes narrowed slightly in acknowledgement before she turned to her subordinates with a crisp command. "Everyone knows their roles, no deviation and no hesitation when contact is made." Her voice was sharp, cutting through any potential dissent. Meanwhile, Adrian glanced over his plans again, memorizing every detail. He knew this mission would require flawless execution. He continued, addressing the entire assembly. Each of you will follow your assigned paths to ensure complete coverage. The objective is clear. Gather as much hard evidence as we can and extract it without a trace. One by one, members of Adrian's team rose to their feet, each silently acknowledging the gravity of the orders. Adrian watched them with calculating eyes, his mind mapping out every conceivable contingency. "What about the guards?" asked one operative quietly, concern evident in his voice, yet controlled beneath a layer of steel. Adrian responded coolly, "They'll still be counting on our usual methods. Tonight we surprise them." Mara added, her tone unyielding, "And if resistance is met, neutralize?" A somber silence fell over the group as they digested this directive, a reminder that their mission operated not just in shadows, but beyond any conventional moral bounds. As twilight faded into night and stars began to sprinkle the sky, team members split off in pairs according to their prearranged plans. Adrian watched them go through narrow alleys and passages known only to a select few among their network. He lingered briefly, savoring the moment of tension that always accompanied such ventures, each heartbeat weighed against the backdrop of uncertainty, each breath potentially the last. Adrian returned to his vantage point overlooking the city. The stronghold lay ahead under cover of darkness, a fortress shrouded in mystery and guarded by shadowy figures whose identities were known to few beyond this secret chamber. Minutes stretched into hours as Adrian meticulously surveilled the compound from afar, monitoring every flicker of movement, every unexplained pattern that could signal an impending ambush. Inside the stronghold, the heart of their target, a vast expanse punctuated by rows of bustling personnel and a labyrinth of secure chambers. The central chamber, where rumors whispered about the presence of their ultimate goal, the ledger charting clandestine dealings and manipulations across time itself. Mara and her team moved like ghosts through the compound's security layers, slinking past guards who turned out to be mere puppets loyal to more sinister forces unseen. Infiltration required precision, patience, and an understanding of each weak point within the fortress defenses. Mara led with a quiet authority that commanded respect, her every motion graceful yet purposeful. Their objective took them deeper into the stronghold's core rooms filled with encrypted computers, private communications channels buzzing with illicit transactions. As they progressed further in, the stakes grew correspondingly higher. Suddenly, an unexpected complication materialized. A high-level guard recognized Mara through his fog of hallucinogens, eyes narrowing sharply before he could react. His hand moved toward a communicator, but his training took over. She acted swiftly, neutralizing him without making undue noise and securing his position for her team to slip by undetected. They pushed onward, until finally reaching the guarded chamber housing that which they sought most fervently, the ledger recording all clandestine dealings and manipulations, the very heart of their adversary's power. Mara paused, hand resting on a small device before her allies. "We have eyes inside," she murmured under breath. The response came back in an encrypted whisper. "Go." With practiced precision, Mara and the team breached the chamber undetected. Inside laid rows upon rows of sealed documents and encrypted drives protected by layers of security. As they began to gather materials, Adrian's instructions reverberated through their minds: secure proof, leave no trace. The weight of their mission pressed heavily as each item was carefully lifted, examined for relevance, and tucked away secretly by the operatives. Despite the tight time frame and risk of detection at any moment, the precision and coordination remained seamless between team members. However, one misstep occurred. A guard stumbled drunkenly into the room just as they were about to retreat. This individual, known for erratic behavior under influence, had somehow eluded expected incapacitation by other operatives assigned elsewhere within the stronghold to create diversions. Adrian watched with tense focus from his vantage point as this unforeseen complication played out in real time, his grip tightened around the amulet's chain beneath his cloak. A potential disaster loomed if this guard raised enough commotion to trigger an alarm, yet another unknown wrinkle in what had been crafted so precisely. Mara acted immediately, utilizing a mix of combat training and quick thinking as she neutralized the threat efficiently while her team continued their mission. Yet this guard's unexpected presence heightened alertness among other security personnel within the stronghold. Whispers and hushed exchanges turned into sporadic movements that sent Adrian's mind racing. It wouldn't take long for suspicions to be raised. Time was running out, both in terms of escaping undetected and ensuring their haul would not be noticed missing. Mara glanced at her wrist device, gauging the time they had left before extraction and signaling others to hurry up. "We can no longer waste time," she called out quietly yet urgently as the seconds counted down, a reminder, broadcasted to everyone still gathering data within secure chambers throughout the stronghold. Just as Adrian breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing his team begin their withdrawal, a sudden commotion burst from one corner of the facility. Chaos erupted, a breach in another part of the stronghold where diversions were meant to take place but seemed ineffective. Adrian's grip on reality tightened. He had seen this scenario play out countless times, calculated and recalculated, yet here lay uncertainty once more, and with it, potential failure. Mara's eyes flickered with a mixture of urgency and determination as she ushered her team swiftly towards the exit points. This was when Adrian knew that every second counted time to rely not only on careful planning but also adaptability. They converged upon several pre-selected escape routes designed for precisely this situation. A sudden breakout meant navigating chaos and evading security forces who were now scrambling into action mode, their numbers vastly outweighing that of Mara's team. In the labyrinthine corridors beneath the stronghold, he maneuvered her group through shadowy corners and ventilation shafts previously scouted out by Adrian. "Split up," she ordered abruptly. Each operative complied swiftly, breaking off in different directions to increase chances of evading capture or ensuring that if one was compromised, others could still succeed, a strategy devised meticulously yet now being tested under high-pressure conditions. Meanwhile, Adrian worked feverishly from his vantage point, adjusting plans mid-mission according to the unexpected challenges that arose. His fingers flew over ancient computer terminals, securing their retreat and neutralizing potential threats. Every step he took mirrored those of his team within the stronghold. Through encrypted channels, orders cascaded down into action on the ground, guiding them past patrols, leading them deeper into the bowels of the compound where escape pods lay dormant in hidden alcoves. As the operation unfolded before him, Adrian's eyes narrowed with focus, calculating each move with razor-sharp precision. His mind operated like a well-oiled clock, anticipating each new challenge and adapting plans accordingly, seconds ticking away with each passing moment. Mara finally emerged through a concealed exit into dimly lit night, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she watched the escape pods flicker to life one by one just outside the compound's perimeter. Team members huddled close together, their faces illuminated eerily by the shifting glow of escaping pods. "Go!" Mara urged each person with a final push toward freedom. As operatives hurried into the safety of the pods, a heavy realization settled in, one that Adrian knew would echo far beyond this night and deep into future chapters yet to be written. For now, time had been won, a victory snatched from the jaws of uncertainty. Each member now bore critical information, proof beyond doubt, that pointed directly toward the core of their adversary's power. Their success hinged on navigating treacherous waters of political intrigue, where allies could shift like tides and loyalties were fickle. This was merely the beginning, a turning point that would set precedents for future ventures into an ever-evolving game, played not only between man but against the very fabric of time itself. A game Adrian understood well through calculated risks, relentless purpose, and adaptability in the face of unpredictability. He had positioned his players on a path toward eventual dominance. As the last escape pod soared silently into the night sky carrying their team to safety, Adrian took one final breath before shifting into full gear for what awaited next. A night's worth of clandestine maneuvers now culminated into actionable intelligence ripe for exploitation. The ledger was secured, though hidden beneath layers of encrypted drives and sealed documents lay an untold tapestry waiting to be unraveled. Adrian returned to his sanctum, where the glow from countless screens cast ghostly reflections across the room. A vast network of connections forming intricate patterns that he had painstakingly weaved together. Each piece gathered tonight would play its part in unraveling the enigmatic workings behind this temporal manipulation, unlocking secrets that stretched far beyond mere years bought and sold. Adrian's resolve hardened as he prepared for the next phase, a chessboard with timelines as stakes, where every move carried consequences cascading through eras, yet unrealized. The clock ticked incessantly on inaudible beats of measured precision, each second bringing him closer still to wielding an unimaginable power over time itself. But Adrian knew better than anyone. True victory lay beyond mere acquisition of tools. It hinged upon skillful deployment and a relentless push toward altering destiny's course entirely, a dance of fate where every step was weighed against an orchestra tuning up for history's ultimate crescendo. Thus, Adrian stood poised once more on the precipice of change. The night had granted him and his team crucial information, a foothold into unraveling secrets that others would kill to protect. With purpose as unyielding as steel, Adrian set his sights upon further advancements, ready to write a new chapter in the annals of chronocraft where he alone held the pen. And so, the night drew to its close as this first act concluded with triumphs and risks balanced on the knife's edge of fate's design, a precursor to many more nights like these yet to unfold within the shadows beneath starlit skies, a journey into territory uncharted, guided by an unwavering belief that through manipulation of time itself, Adrian could redefine not just his future, but that of generations beyond. For now, Adrian prepared for what lay ahead, where every decision and action played out under the watchful eye of eternity. This was merely the beginning, the foundation laid for a tapestry woven from threads of time itself, a tale still unfolding amidst the whispers and shadows lurking within the core of this clandestine narrative. Mara emerged from the shadows, her face a blend of relief and urgency as she watched the escape pods disappear into the night sky one by one. Each successful launch meant another step toward safety, but also another piece of evidence against their adversaries. As Adrian monitored the scene from his vantage point, a sudden jolt of fear gripped him when he noticed a few pods malfunctioning mid-launch. The dimly lit dashboard flickered with warning signals, and alarms blazed through the air. "Adrian," Mara's voice crackled over the encrypted channel. "One pod is showing system failure. We need to rectify it immediately." His heart pounded as he toggled between control screens, each pixel a lifeline for those still within reach of safety. He knew that even the slightest miscalculation could mean dire consequences. "Understood," Adrian replied, his voice steady despite the mounting tension. Redirecting emergency protocols into Pod 3 now. Within seconds, the failed pod began to respond under the new instructions, its engines reigniting with a surge of power. A moment later, it shot skyward amidst a burst of vapor steam. Adrian expelled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding as the final pod launched without incident. The team was out, and yet the night's work wasn't complete. Mara hurried to gather her thoughts before making their final move. "Adrian, do we have any chance of getting through undetected?" "Negative," Adrian responded grimly. "Security has been beefed up in every sector. Even with your diversionary tactics, it's only a matter of time before the alarm is raised fully." Mara nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration as she analyzed their current position and options. "We need to ensure our intel reaches its intended destination without interception." Adrian's fingers flew over the keyboard again, his movements rapid and precise. He needed to act swiftly while there was still an opening. "Encrypting data streams now," he said softly, and transmitting them through back channels. Through an intricate network of secure nodes spread throughout the city, Adrian began channeling their gathered intelligence safely away from prying eyes. Each transmission was a test of endurance and precision against time itself. Just as he completed the final transfer, warning alarms began to blare in the Stronghold's central command center. The team's success had been detected, but Adrian's encrypted web ensured that critical data remained secure and undetected by opposing forces. Mara stood at attention, her mind racing with options for their exit strategy. "When the security detail sweeps this area, they're going to find our team dispersed," she noted. "We need a cover story, something plausible enough to divert suspicion." Adrian leaned back in his chair, his gaze locking onto multiple screens that flickered with real-time feeds from various vantage points around the stronghold. Let's manipulate their perception of reality, he suggested. Feed false information through our channels, create decoys where they least expect them. Mara's eyes lit up as she understood Adrian's plan. Together, they devised a series of virtual distractions designed to mislead and confuse the opposing security forces long enough for their team members to safely relocate to predetermined safe houses scattered throughout the city. Set it in motion, Mara said with a firm nod. We'll follow through. Adrian nodded grimly as he initiated several covert operations aimed at spreading false leads and creating diversions. The Stronghold's advanced monitoring systems were soon overwhelmed by waves of fake alerts and misleading intel, ensuring that their actual movements remained hidden. Meanwhile, Mara and her team began making their final exit moves, each operative following a specific route to ensure minimal risk. They navigated the darkened city streets under cover of night, their steps light but purposeful as they made their way towards safe zones waiting in the shadows. Adrian watched intently from his command center, coordinating their retreat and ensuring that no detail was overlooked. Each operative had their own secure point within the city to rendezvous an intricate web of hiding places where none would suspect them to be. Good work, Adrian murmured as he verified each team member's safe arrival at predetermined points. Mara, we've bought ourselves invaluable time. And more than that, Mara replied tersely over the comms line, her voice steady despite the tension running high through their veins. We've disrupted their operations significantly. They won't be able to get back on track for weeks, or perhaps even longer. Adrian nodded silently as he continued monitoring the Stronghold's response. The carefully crafted diversions were working, but they still needed to keep one step ahead at all times. Time to reassess our next moves, Adrian concluded, his voice calm and collected. We've taken significant risks tonight, risks we won't take lightly again. Mara's agreement was immediate and unequivocal. Agreed. We'll compile what we have and plan the next phase with precision and caution. Adrian took a moment to collect his thoughts, drawing upon an exhaustive catalog of contingencies and backup plans he had prepared over months of meticulous planning. The risks tonight were immense, but so too was their reward. We've laid the groundwork, Adrian said softly. But this battle is far from over. Tonight's success brings us closer to our ultimate objective, but only if we continue to adapt and evolve at every turn. Mara nodded silently into her communicator as she began coordinating with other agents to secure additional resources and strengthen their network's defenses against any future attacks or infiltrations. Meanwhile, Adrian turned his focus back to the screens before him. Each passing moment was a critical decision point, a dance of strategy and survival where every move carried immense weight. He needed to ensure that their team remained as resilient as ever in the face of adversity. A new chapter loomed ahead, filled with countless challenges yet unseen. Yet Adrian stood ready once more, his resolve unwavering as he prepared for what lay beyond the shadows into an uncertain future. The night drew on, and despite the looming dangers ahead, he felt a rare sense of purpose in navigating these treacherous waters. With every decision made and every risk taken, he was closer to unraveling hidden secrets and altering the course of events beyond his wildest expectations. Time was now in their favor, though still fragile and ever-shifting beneath uncertain skies. The true test lay ahead, a journey into unknown territories where Adrian's unparalleled abilities would be put to the ultimate trial. The clock ticked forward, counting down mere moments before what might become an eternity of change itself. But for now, Adrian remained steadfast in his resolve, his actions a testament to the belief that through relentless pursuit and strategic foresight, he would carve out not just their fate, but that of countless others who awaited redemption within the folds of time's intricate tapestry. In the heart of the night, Adrian stood prepared once more, as if already poised for whatever dawn might lie ahead. The story continued beyond this shadowed hour, unfolding in silent whispers and hidden shadows, where destiny itself was slowly rewritten through each calculated step and resolute action taken. Thus ended another chapter yet to unfold, a prelude to future sagas that would follow, bearing secrets untold and outcomes still unrevealed. A journey into the heart of an ever-shifting timeline, one forged from courage, deception, and relentless purpose in the faceless embrace of ever-ebbing time itself. Adrian's resolve held firm as he prepared for the night's aftermath. where every decision and action played out under the watchful eye of eternal stakes. Another piece had been added to a grand puzzle where Adrian now stood at its heart, a master orchestrating threads woven through layers of temporal manipulation, guiding each step with precision toward an ultimate crescendo yet unseen. And so, with purpose as enduring as the night itself, Adrian's journey into uncharted territories unfolded anew, each moment stepping closer still toward wielding power over time and destiny. A grand tale still in its infancy, unfolding amidst shadows and whispers of secrets to be revealed, one chapter closing as another begins, poised to usher epochs beyond the bounds of mere years. For now, with each heartbeat marking passage through this pivotal night's challenges, Adrian stood ready once more, embarking upon a journey into territories unexplored within an ever-evolving dance of fate's enduring design. The night pressed on, shadows coalescing into dense curtains of darkness that seemed to suffocate even the faintest sound. Adrian's fingers danced across the keyboard, transmitting coded messages and setting up new layers of defense against potential intrusions. Adrian noted meticulously each piece of information transmitted from within the stronghold, every byte and bit holding secrets he needed to unravel. The data flooded into his secure repository, pulsating with the raw power of hidden truths and untold strategies. Mara watched him intently from across the room, eyes reflecting a mixture of confidence and concern as she surveyed her surroundings for any signs of compromise or intrusion. Adrian's mind raced through countless scenarios. The fallout from their operation could have far-reaching implications. He had to anticipate every possible reaction and devise countermeasures accordingly. His chronoledger allowed him to foresee potential outcomes, but it was the human element that remained unpredictable, a variable he needed to account for meticulously. "Ensure everyone is accounted for," Adrian instructed Mara abruptly. "No single member should be left vulnerable." Mara nodded tersely as she tapped into a secure line to cross-verify each team member's location and status. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, her voice calm but steely as she relayed information back to Adrian. "We're all in place," she reported after a moment. "The distraction is working. They have no idea where we really are." Adrian pursed his lips thoughtfully. He was acutely aware that the diversion they had orchestrated might buy them only temporary respite. The enemy's system was sophisticated, and with each passing second, their defenses would adapt and reinforce themselves. "We need more than just a temporary reprieve," Adrian said grimly. "We must identify key weaknesses within their infrastructure. Their security protocols will tighten rapidly." Mara agreed without hesitation. Together, they reviewed the data streams for any exploitable flaws or patterns that might give them an edge in the coming confrontation. Each detail was crucial. A single oversight could cost them everything. "We'll find the chinks," Adrian promised. "They're there. We just need to know where to look. Let's narrow our focus and refine our approach." Mara turned back to her station, eyes glinting with determination as she delved into the data, hunting for any sign of vulnerability in the enemy's defenses. The room was tense but purposeful. Each member of their team knew the stakes, but also the potential rewards. Adrian continued monitoring multiple screens, his attention split between different feeds and streams of information. "Mara," he spoke softly into his comms unit. "Prepare for a recalibration." Recalibration meant shifting gears entirely, that they might need to change tactics swiftly if the enemy adapted faster than expected. Each phase would require meticulous planning, each step taken with calculated precision. Adrian's fingers flew over the keyboard once more as he began to lay out new contingency plans, paths that could ensure their survival and continued progress toward their ultimate goal. "We'll need secure protocols in place for our next phase," Adrian said after a moment. "The stronghold's defenses will be fortified now. We must infiltrate deeper, gather more intelligence." Mara nodded briskly. "Agreed. I'll initiate preparations." She began coordinating with her team members who were scattered across the city, sending secure messages and setting up new fallback positions as they navigated an ever-evolving landscape. Adrian adjusted his focus once more, ensuring that every thread of their operation was tightly woven together. He knew the risks, but he also knew the potential rewards. "Every risk taken had a purpose. Time is against us," Adrian noted with a grim smile, "but we are ready to push back against it." Mara's voice rang out clearly through the comms unit, her words, Uh, uh, uh. Time seemed to slow as Adrian's fingers danced across the keyboard once more, methodically entering commands and parsing through streams of data that flickered from one screen to another. Mara's team had infiltrated deeper into the stronghold than ever before. Despite the inherent risks and the sophisticated security measures in place, they found themselves at a crossroads where their previous plans needed to adapt swiftly to new intelligence. Adrian studied each line of code and every bit of data Mara sent his way, synthesizing the information with meticulous care. Each piece fit into a larger puzzle, revealing more about the enemy's operations, their vulnerabilities, and crucial strategic positions. "This is our opportunity," Adrian whispered under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the latest intel. "We need to move fast before they tighten security further." Adrian knew that every moment wasted was a step back in the race against time. He turned to Mara with a clear mind, ready to orchestrate their next move. "Mara," he said firmly, "prepare your team for a more aggressive operation. We will push forward and gather as much data as possible. The enemy's defenses must be compromised." Mara nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of Adrian's words. She stepped away from her station, making calls to various contacts within the stronghold. Each communication was swift and precise, sending out new directives and confirming positions. Adrian observed the operation unfold with a mixture of anticipation and caution. He knew that in such critical times, even minor errors could have disastrous consequences. His mind raced through countless possibilities, ensuring every detail aligned with their immediate goals and long-term strategy. "We need to establish secure fallbacks," Adrian reminded Mara, his tone firm but calm. "This will be a direct push. Have all contingencies ready." Mara's team responded swiftly, each member moving into position without hesitation. Secrecy was paramount at this stage. No movement could betray their presence or intentions. For Adrian, the stakes were higher than ever before. He had to navigate through complex layers of security, manipulating time and resources with precision. The chrono ledger provided him unparalleled insights, but he needed to apply that knowledge strategically, knowing that every decision would determine not just his fate, but that of countless others involved in this high-stakes operation. His fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard as he fine-tuned their strategy, analyzing potential vulnerabilities and identifying critical entry points. The enemy's system was vast and intricate, making it a daunting task to pinpoint weaknesses without exposing themselves to countermeasures. "This is it," Adrian muttered, his eyes focused intently on the screens before him. "We move now." The team responded in unison, following the meticulously planned sequence of actions. Mara monitored each phase closely, ensuring that they remained one step ahead at all times. She relayed confirmation codes and security clearance bypasses, her voice steady under pressure. "The first phase has been implemented," Mara reported after a moment. "We have secured an initial foothold within their mainframe." Adrian nodded slowly, his mind already formulating the next steps in their operation. The enemy's defenses were indeed formidable, yet they had managed to breach critical boundaries, a significant breakthrough, though temporary at best. "We need to expedite data extraction," Adrian said, his voice low and urgent. "Mara, focus on gathering operational blueprints and security protocols." Mara nodded briskly, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she accessed layers of encrypted information. Her eyes darted back and forth between multiple screens, her face a mask of concentration. Adrian watched intently, noting every small victory alongside potential risks. He knew that their success hinged not just on intelligence, but also on swift and adaptable execution. Every second counted against them. It was a matter of outmaneuvering the enemy's adaptive systems before they could respond effectively. The clock ticked urgently as Adrian continued to orchestrate from his position, issuing commands through secure channels with calculated precision. He analyzed incoming data in real time, cross-referencing and synthesizing new insights that emerged with each passing second. "We're almost there," he whispered softly, his eyes locking onto a critical segment of code. "Extract every bit, Mara." Mara worked swiftly, her fingers deftly navigating through layers of security. She gathered intelligence as rapidly as possible, cross-verifying sources to ensure the precision and reliability of their information. Adrian's heart raced with anticipation, knowing that their operation was reaching a crucial juncture. The enemy's defenses would strengthen further. Time was against them, but they could not afford hesitation. The data extraction process was nearing completion. Every bit extracted was another piece of the puzzle in identifying and neutralizing key threats within the stronghold. Almost done, Mara confirmed, her voice tinged with a rare note of satisfaction. We've secured critical blueprints. Adrian nodded once more, his mind already planning their next moves. The phase they were closing had been critical. Their operations had uncovered vital information that would be pivotal in dismantling the enemy's network from within. The night pressed on, shadows deepening into a dense curtain of darkness. Adrian and Mara exchanged furtive glances filled with shared determination and resolve. It was evident that their success hinged not just on intelligence but also on meticulous planning, swift execution, and relentless adaptability. Secure transmissions, Adrian commanded quietly, his eyes still locked onto the screens. Send this data to our secure repositories. Begin deploying countermeasures immediately. Mara's fingers moved with practiced precision as she initiated each step, verifying the safety of transmission channels and implementing security protocols that would safeguard their progress thus far. The stronghold remained a labyrinthine network, a maze of complex systems and defenses, yet they had managed to breach critical boundaries, a significant and dangerous victory. Adrian knew that every minute counted against them. He could not afford even a moment's complacency in the face of formidable opposition. We must stay one step ahead, he murmured, his eyes sweeping across various screens. Mara, prepare for Phase 2. She nodded without hesitation, understanding the gravity of their next steps. The night was their ally, yet also a perilous realm where secrets could be uncovered and lost within fleeting moments. Adrian monitored with keen focus, ensuring that every thread of their operation was tightly woven together. They had emerged from this first phase stronger, but still vigilant. Every minor error carried significant consequences in the game they were playing. Against time itself, the extracted data promised a wealth of insights that would be crucial in shaping their subsequent tactics and countermeasures. With each passing moment, Adrian felt an ever-growing sense of purpose, an unwavering resolve to push forward despite the risks. We're ready for Phase 2, he declared finally, his voice steady but resolute. Mara, signal the team. The night pressed on into a darker realm beneath starlit skies where shadows danced and secrets lingered in the air. Adrian and Mara were fully prepared, minds focused, resolve unyielding. Forward, Adrian whispered quietly, the word carried by the whisper of digital signals and streams of coded messages between them. Time itself was now a battlefield, a dance performed amidst veils of uncertainty where every move held unimaginable stakes. The night continued to weave around them, cloaked in layers of silent suspense as they moved steadily toward their ultimate objective, one step closer toward wielding power over destinies intertwined with the fabric of time itself. Adrian's mind raced through countless scenarios, anticipating each potential outcome and strategizing for contingencies. He knew that each action from this point forward would carry immense weight, shaping not only their immediate prospects, but also casting shadows upon the broader landscape where destiny itself was meticulously woven. The night pressed onward into a realm of secrets yet to be uncovered, a story still in progress where countless threads remained taut and unbroken, waiting for Adrian's decisive actions to either sever them or draw them closer together. Each step taken was a stride toward an ultimate crescendo, the culmination of years dedicated to unraveling the complex puzzles of power, manipulation, and eternal stakes. And so, the night stretched into moments where Adrian and Mara stood ready, poised on the precipice where every decision would chart their course deeper into territories unexplored. The clock ticked steadily, marking each passing second as they moved forward together, united in purpose amidst the shadows where destiny awaited with open arms. The story continued to unfold beyond this shadowed hour, one chapter closing but many more yet to be written in an ever-evolving dance where time itself was wielded as both shield and sword. Adrian's resolve held firm, his every action a testament to the belief that through relentless pursuit and strategic foresight, he would shape not just their fates, but those of countless others enmeshed within the intricate weavings of fate's enduring design. In this moment, with each passing heartbeat counting down toward an unimaginable tide yet unseen, Adrian stood ready once more, embracing the uncertain night that lay ahead as a new phase of the saga awaited to unfold. The network of screens dimmed slightly as Mara double-checked their encrypted transmissions for any breaches before settling back in her chair, fingers poised over the keyboards that connected them to countless nodes around the world. Adrian's voice was a whisper over the secure channel. Phase 2 begins now. He felt a surge of adrenaline mingle with his usual calm focus. The data they had collected was substantial and would serve as their trump card going into this next stage. The clock still ticked urgently, pressing down on them like a relentless weight. His mind sketched out the next steps in vivid detail. "Mara," Adrian continued, "our initial objective has been met. Now we need to leverage what we've gathered and push deeper." She nodded without looking up from her terminal, fingers moving with practiced precision as she tapped through layers of encrypted files. "The Stronghold's defenses are likely adapting by now. Any countermeasures deployed may have altered the battlefield," Adrian observed, his eyes scanning through data streams that flickered across multiple screens. "But we have a head start." Mara's confirmation came in the form of crisp, clear reports streaming into their system, a wealth of information about adaptive systems and potential weak points. "We've identified several key access nodes," Mara announced, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I'm setting up our next moves now." Adrian leaned forward in his chair, eyes narrowing as he examined the data more closely. He was calculating every possible contingency. Each move they made could have far-reaching repercussions. "Confirming," Adrian murmured, his fingers tapping out a sequence of commands to cross-check and secure their position before moving further. The stronghold remained enigmatic, its complexity daunting. Yet each layer they peeled back reinforced their resolve. It was not just about breaking through defenses, but understanding the very fabric of this system. "We need to ensure our positioning is strong," Adrian said, his voice low and controlled as he analyzed potential threats. "Every step has to be precise." Mara nodded again, her face set in a determined expression as she continued to navigate the labyrinthine network before them. The shadows around them seemed denser, the night pressing closer, a dark, silent ally that hid their movements. Adrian's mind raced through countless scenarios, crafting strategies with meticulous detail. He knew full well that every decision from this point forward would shape not only the immediate outcome, but also future possibilities they could scarcely imagine. "We'll use our entry points wisely," Adrian declared, his voice a soft command filled with authority. "We're going in for Phase 2. Together, Adrian and Mara coordinated their efforts seamlessly, one mind guiding the operation as the other executed it with relentless precision. The stronghold loomed large, massive, and imposing, a fortress erected to protect secrets of immense value. "Go," Adrian said, a single word that unleashed a cascade of actions designed to exploit the very vulnerabilities they had uncovered just moments ago. Mara's fingers moved in lightning-fast succession, opening access points one by one as she directed their infiltration. Each movement was calculated and purposeful, designed not only to bypass defenses but also to leave as little trace as possible. "We're setting up decoy signals," Mara told him, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around them. "These will distract any monitoring systems." Adrian monitored closely, his hands steady on the controls as he ensured their cover was solid and impenetrable. Every move was measured, every action calibrated for maximum impact. The night outside seemed to grow darker still. A veil of uncertainty spread across everything they did. But Adrian felt a strange calm in the center of this storm. He knew what must be done to secure their objective. "You'll see it through?" he asked Mara softly. Her eyes met his briefly, filled with an unspoken understanding, the knowledge that they were in this together, standing firm against a tide yet unseen but already sensed. "Absolutely," Mara replied, her resolve unwavering. "We're almost there." Adrian's fingers darted over the console as he finalized their preparations, executing the plan with ruthless efficiency. He knew every microsecond counted now. Time was their most precious commodity, and they were running perilously low. "We'll be in position for Phase 3 shortly," Adrian said finally, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of determination. Mara nodded once more, her focus unbroken as she continued to orchestrate the intricacies of their next steps. Together, they stood poised on the brink of an unknown, a dance of shadows and secrets yet to be revealed. The night still held its mysteries, its perils, but they were prepared for what lay ahead. Adrian's thoughts drifted momentarily toward the larger picture. Beyond this immediate mission was a chessboard spread out across time itself. Every year he could control bought power in a world where age was currency and lifespan was capital. "We're making history here," Adrian murmured to himself, almost as if speaking aloud would break the spell of concentration that had settled over them both. "Every minute counts." Mara's eyes flickered toward him for only an instant before resuming her vigilant scans. Her understanding resonated in every measured stroke of her fingers on the keyboard. "The night is still our ally," she replied softly, a grim satisfaction present even as exhaustion crept into her voice. Adrian agreed silently. Their resolve was unbreakable. They were playing a game where time itself was currency, and in this game they were poised for victory. "We move forward," Adrian declared decisively, his mind already turning to the next phases of their plan. "Ready or not, it's just begun." The night pressed on, dark and secretive, as Adrian and Mara moved steadily deeper into territories yet unexplored. Each heartbeat brought them closer to an unimaginable tide still unseen, an adventure where shadows danced and destinies intertwined. Adrian stood ready once more, bracing for the unknown with a calm, calculating heart that believed in their mission beyond all question. The night stretched on into countless moments yet to unfold, a story waiting to be written, one step at a time as they embraced the uncertain future that lay ahead. "We're building something," Adrian mused aloud, his voice just above a whisper. "Something no one has ever truly controlled before, time itself." Mara glanced up from her console again, an almost imperceptible smile quirking her lips, a silent acknowledgement of their shared goal and the magnitude of what they were attempting to achieve. "Time to make our mark," she echoed softly, her voice filled with resolve and a hint of excitement at the sheer audacity of it all. Together they stood poised on that precarious edge, ready for whatever waited in the dark. The night continued its silent vigil around them, a witness to their actions, to their strategies, to their daring steps into destiny's own dance. "Let's make history," Adrian whispered softly, his determination and unyielding force propelling both of them forward into the unknown with each passing moment. And so they moved onward into the shadows, each step a purposeful stride toward a future that Adrian now held in his hands. The night stretched endlessly before them, hiding countless secrets and challenges, yet to be uncovered, a saga still unfolding as new chapters eagerly awaited their arrival. Time was their weapon, their shield, their most valuable commodity. With each passing heartbeat, they stood on the precipice of unimaginable power, an adventure that embraced the future with open arms even as destiny itself loomed ominously on the horizon. As Adrian concluded his final set of commands, the night outside remained pitch black, save for the faint glow of the computer screens illuminating their surroundings. The digital signals they had released into the Stronghold's network now flowed like rivers through a vast sea of data, each bit working to secure their position and ensure that Phase 2 would proceed without hitch. Adrian watched with steady eyes as the information consolidated before him, a mosaic of coded messages and security breaches he meticulously orchestrated one by one. Mara worked her magic alongside him, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with an effortless grace born from years of honed expertise. "We're in," she announced calmly, sending a burst of energy through Adrian's veins. "Excellent," Adrian murmured back, relishing the smooth operation they had executed thus far. The stronghold was now within their grasp, a fortress of secrets and wealth just waiting to be plundered. Adrian leaned slightly closer to the console, analyzing every detail as he prepared for whatever came next. "Let's move quickly," he instructed Mara quietly. "The longer we stay here, the greater the risk." Mara nodded in agreement, her expression one of fierce determination. Together, they forged ahead with unwavering resolve, a seamless partnership built on years of trust and shared objectives. As the night deepened further around them, Adrian couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come from their humble origins. What started as a small group of outcasts now stood poised to revolutionize the very fabric of society through this newfound power over time itself. Phase 2 complete, Adrian declared with a mixture of pride and satisfaction in his voice. Prepare for Phase 3. Mara's eyes flicked upwards, acknowledging Adrian once more before returning her focus to the task at hand. She continued to weave their way into the stronghold, ensuring that every step taken was calculated and precise. The data flow intensified as they delved deeper into the network, a complex web of security protocols and defensive measures designed to protect the secrets within. But for Adrian and Mara, these defenses were nothing but obstacles waiting to be overcome with strategic finesse and relentless determination. We're approaching the core, Mara reported tersely, her voice low and steady. Any signs of intrusion will mean immediate countermeasures from their side. Adrian's pulse quickened in anticipation. This final phase would determine their success or failure. The risks were high, but so too was the potential reward. Stand by for encryption bypass, he instructed Mara, his hands poised over the console keys as he prepared to execute the next series of commands with surgical precision. Mara began inputting a complex sequence of codes designed to override any form of security that might stand in their way. Adrian watched intently as each digit fell into place. Their plan was unfolding exactly as they had envisioned. Bypassing encryption, Mara informed him, her voice barely above a whisper. System down. A wave of satisfaction washed over Adrian as the core system revealed itself before them, a treasure trove of information and resources waiting to be claimed. They were finally here. The culmination of years spent plotting and strategizing came to fruition in this very moment. We have it, Adrian whispered, his breath caught in his throat at the sight before him. We're in. Mara exhaled a quiet sigh, but remained resolute. No time for celebrating yet, as they still had one last phase to navigate through safely. Data extraction starting now, she confirmed with unwavering professionalism. Each digit of crucial information was now carefully extracted from the system, a process that required meticulous attention and precision timing. Adrian's fingers moved with swift decisiveness, cross-referencing every piece of data as it passed through their secure channels. Secure the transmission lines, he ordered Mara firmly but calmly. Mara complied without hesitation. She understood the importance of ensuring that no trace of their presence was left behind. The network flowed under her commands like water, smoothly and invisibly. Extraction complete, she announced finally, after what felt like an eternity of tense anticipation, all necessary data secured. Adrian leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing at the edge of his lips. This mission had gone precisely according to plan, a perfect blend of intelligence, strategy, and flawless execution. We've done it, he confirmed quietly but proudly, feeling the weight of their accomplishment settle heavily upon his shoulders. Phase 3 operational. Mara nodded once more. Both knew that this victory represented far more than just a successful mission. It marked the beginning of something much larger, a new era where secrets and power were theirs for the taking. Together they turned to face each other for one final moment of shared triumph before continuing their relentless push towards ultimate control over time itself, the stakes higher than ever as destiny hung precariously in the balance. Let's get this data back into our secure vaults, Adrian instructed with renewed vigor. Phase 4 is next. Mara rose to her feet, a look of quiet satisfaction flickering across her face, before it was quickly concealed behind the mask of professional detachment once more. We move forward together, she replied softly, but resolutely, words echoed not just by mouth, but also through years of unyielding commitment and steadfast partnership. Adrian stood as well, matching her resolve with a focused intensity that marked their approach towards Phase 4, a new chapter in their saga, where the stakes were unimaginably high and the future awaited with open arms. The night pressed on relentlessly as Adrian and Mara moved out into shadows once more, this time not just survivors, but architects of their own destiny. The cold night air whispered secrets through the darkness, carrying promises of things yet to come, a story still in progress where countless threads remained tautly stretched across an ever-evolving landscape. "Forward," Adrian murmured with an almost poetic finality as they stepped into the unknown once more, eyes set firmly on the future, and a destiny woven intricately through the tapestries of time itself. "Let's build our empire." Adrian's voice carried no hesitation but a calm, calculated conviction that every step taken would solidify their grip over the most precious commodity in existence, life. As the night wore on, Adrian and Mara marched deeper into territories untold, a saga waiting to unfold through each deliberate stride towards an ambitious crescendo where time itself danced at their fingertips.